to the District of Brown Deer School Board Annual Meeting. And thank you very much for taking the time out of your busy schedules to be able to join us, today in person as well as in virtual. I do want to let everyone know that in relationship to the board, in relationship to the vote for this evening, you have to be in person in order to vote. So again, you can't vote online, you can't vote on the chat, you have to actually be present and in person in order for your vote to be able to count. So for those of you that are in the virtual world, if you are still have a little bit of time, if you can get on down before the rest of the presentations and the vote, let your vote go ahead and count. So I would like to be able to start the bring this meeting to order at 6:07 p.m. All right, and I would like to be able to do introductions to all of our board members. Board members starting, I am Dr. Todd Beadle, I'm the board president, and starting to my immediate left, starting with Lita Daniels Ashley.
Lita Daniels Ashley.
I'm Anita Peterson, board treasurer.
Nicole Zick.
I'm Lisa Zielinski, board vice president.
Oh, I'm sorry. There I am. Okay, I'm Dorinthia Robinson, board clerk.
Stacy Smith.
All right, and so now we have all 7 of our board members are present and in person. So with that being said, I'd like to be able to turn this meeting over to Dr. Monica Kelsey Brown, our district administrator.
Good morning. Good morning. That tells you how my day is going. Good evening, everyone. Good evening, board members and our Brown Deer community. I would like to share with everyone that this meeting has been properly published in the North Shore Now as it relates to the date and time of the annual meeting being this evening at 6 o'clock. We will move toward the election of a chairperson, of which we have Ms. Shimmons. Can you hear us?
Yes, I can. I accept.
Okay. All right.
Can you hear me?
Yes,
We're good?
we can.
Okay, we'll start by the reading of the annual meeting minutes from last year.
I'm sorry, Dr. Kelsey Brown, we should vote on the
Yes.
chairperson, just to clarify that before we begin.
Thank you, Kevin. So a nomination to elect Ellen Shimmons as the chairperson for the 2021 annual meeting.
All right, so we have, I'm sorry. We have 9 community members that have voted yes. Huh? All right, we can do that one more time.
Yes.
All in favor of Ellen Shimmons as residents to be the chair of the meeting, raise hand and or aye. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Where's 12? Oh, 12. Okay, sorry. All right, 12. Okay.
So 12 votes yes for Ellen Shimmons to be the chairperson of this evening's meeting. Anybody opposed? All right, all in favor say, or any nays, I should say, I'm sorry, any nays? Okay, all in favor with an aye?
Aye.
Motion carries, 12 people. All right, Mrs. Shimmons, you may take it away.
All right. First, we will have the reading of the minutes of the last annual meeting. If you can all hear me? Okay, great. A budget hearing and annual meeting of the School District of Brown Deer was held Thursday, September 24, 2020, beginning at 6 p.m. in the Middle School South Commons 8060 North 60th Street, Brown Deer, Wisconsin 53223. Present were Dr. Todd Beadle, Mr. Kevin Klemick, Ms. Anita Pearson, Ms. Michelle Schofield. Present remotely were Mr. Jeff Bursch, Ms. Dorothea Robinson, and Ms. Lisa Zielinski. Administration in attendance were Dr. Monica Kelsey Brown, Dr. Willie Garrison, Ms. Kara Turner, Ms. Dara Atandre, Mr. Jeff Sirek, Ms. Jody Schmeitzka, Ms. Christy Bauer, Ms. Future Kane, Ms. Lamb, Mr. Lucre, Mr. Gerald McGregory, Ms. Sarah Helverson, Mr. Jason Love, Mr. Dennis Griffin, Ms. Tasha Womack, and Ms. Kathy Kelser. Guests at that meeting were Ms. Ellen Shimmons and Ms. Kathy Stressman. Number one was a call to order and introductions. Dr. Todd Beadle, Board President. Dr. Beadle called the meeting to order at 6:06 p.m. Official meeting notification, Dr. Monica Kelsey Brown, Superintendent. Dr. Kelsey Brown verified that the meeting was properly noticed. Elect a chairperson of the annual meeting. Ms. Shimmons nominated Ms. Stressman to serve as chairperson for the annual meeting. The motion was seconded by Ms. Kelser and passed unanimously. Reading of the minutes of the last annual meeting, Ms. Schofield read the September 19, 2019 budget hearing and annual meeting minutes. Superintendent State of the District Report, Dr. Kelsey Brown, Superintendent. Dr. Kelsey Brown reminded the board of the 3 pillars of the district's strategic plan. She presented a letter to the community that stressed the district's willingness to be fiscal stewards of taxpayer dollars and provide a world-class education to all students. Dr. Kelsey Brown shared that referendum funds allow for continuing maximization of facility used as students are phased into the classroom during this crisis. She stated that the district would continue to collaborate with the Village of Brown Deer and the Brown Deer Magazine and pertain partnerships with Pearls for Teen Girls and other community organizations that prioritize student success. She added that points of pride include the Chromebook distribution process, high school virtual graduation celebration, and serving 120,000 nutritious meals to district families since March of 2020. She added that the district celebrated 12 students during the second industry signing day. She also shared that more than $2.2 million in scholarships were awarded to high school students during the 2019-20 school year. She highlighted the high school graduation rate of 95%, including 53 students enrolled in AP classes with 29 students of color participating and a 55% completion rate. She added that the ACT composite score for the district is 18. She thanked the staff for a fantastic job transitioning to virtual learning experiences for students and thanked the Education Foundation for $2,000 in scholastic books for kids in 4K through 6th grade. Reports of the Board of Education, Dr. Todd Beadle. Dr. Beadle shared the board's accomplishments, including the successful search for a new superintendent and the subsequent hiring of Dr. Kelsey Brown. He noted the $36 million referendum resulted in the district tax levy decreasing. Dr. Beadle reminded everyone that the district exceeds expectations and boasts the highest rate of closing the achievement gap in Wisconsin. He highlighted the strategic plan's goals and thanked Mr. Klimek, Dr. Kelsey Brown, Ms. Ross, and the administrative team for their work on updating the board policies over the past 6 months. He added that the phased-in re-entry rollout and the ongoing community collaboration required to implement the plan are integral in the school year's success moving forward. Hearing on the proposed 2020-21 budget, Mr. Jeff Sirek, Director of Finance. Mr. Sirek presented and reviewed the approved 2020-21 budget. He described the budgeting process during the pandemic and how it has impacted budgetary goals. He shared that enrollment projection increases may fluctuate this year because of the ongoing pandemic, which has resulted in budget projections remaining flat using the revenue limits. He highlighted that the Fund 10 balance increased during the 2019-20 school year by $425,000, representing 17.2% of expenditures, reflecting a strong fund balance. He also noted that short-term borrowing was reduced from $2.7 million to $2.3 million. The district is projected to receive a $1.6 million increase in general aid to reduce the tax levy by $1.1 million. He shared that the district received CARES funds totaling $229,000 designated for Chromebooks, mobile hotspots, and increased FTE for district health professionals. He also stated that $225,000 in gear funds were awarded for undetermined school safety usage. Mr. Sirek explained that $125,000 of the fund balance for the 2021 budget is projected to cover expenditures due to a predicted budget repair bill. However, the legislature is no longer considering this bill. He also informed the board that the district remaining referendum dollars have expended. He also shared that the food service fund balance increased by $130,000. Due to the pandemic and limited programming, the district reduced Fund 80 community service tax levy by $165,000. He added that the anticipated tax levy is $1 million less than 2019-20, with a mill rate of $11.85. The district will finalize the tax levy and the budget on October 27, 2020, with the potential of over-levying Fund 39 debt. Other new business or public comments, there was no new business or public comments. Resolution A, authorize tax levy for the 2020-21 school year for all district operations. Ms. Shimmons read the proposed tax levy for the 2021 school year and asked for a motion from the floor. Ms. Dressman made the following motion. I hereby move that a property tax be levied on behalf of the school district of Brown Deer in the amount of $8,632,160 in the Fund 10 General Fund, $2,964,487 in the Referendum Debt Fund 39, $79,748 in the Non-Referendum Debt Fund 38, and $123,540 in the Community Services Fund 80, for a total of $11,799,935 for the 2020-21 school year. The motion was seconded by Kathy Kelsey and passed 10-0. Resolution B, approval of salaries for school board members. Ms. Shimmons made a motion to approve the salaries for school board members at $3,100 per year. The motion was seconded by Ms. Kelsey and passed 3-0. Authorize the school board to establish the annual meeting date and location for 2021. Dr. Kelsey Brown proposed September 28, 2021, 6 p.m. at the Brown Deer Middle School South Common as a date and location for the 2021 annual meeting. Ms. Shimmons made a motion to authorize the school board to establish the annual meeting date and location for 2021 for September 28, 2021 at 6 p.m. at the Brown Deer Middle School South Commons. The motion was seconded by Ms. Kelser and passed 10-0. Adjourn the annual meeting. Ms. Shimmons made a motion to adjourn. The motion was seconded by Ms. Kelser and passed 10-0. The meeting adjourned at 6:50 p.m. That ends the annual meeting minutes. Next, we have Dr. Kelsey Brown with the State of the District Report.
We're going to make an adjustment to that, Mrs. Shimmons. We're going to have Dr. Vito with the board report, report of the Board of Education first, and then I'll go after him.
Sure.
Okay,
Dr. Beadle?
thank you.
All right, thank you everyone, and good evening residents of Brown Deer. My name is Dr. Todd Beadle, and I'm happy to serve as your Brown Deer School Board President. The board is happy to report many successes that we've been able to be a part of, especially during this time of the pandemic and other issues. We have a wonderful administrative team led by Dr. Kelsey Brown and her team, and they have done a marvelous job with our curriculum development, our grounds, facilities, staff development, safety, community relations, and engagement. Brown Deer has been recognized by our neighbors as having one of the top tech ed programs in the state, and we continue to exceed expectations on our school report cards, and our extracurricular and sports teams continue to compete and be successful. As a board, we have focused on the strategic plan and achieving the goals and monitoring those that we are in process of meeting. We continue to monitor and update the district policies and procedures with the administrative team to ensure that we are compliant and working in the best interest of the district. Lastly, I want to share how the board has been fiscally responsible. We now have over $800,000 in our fund balance, another $250,000 in our Fund 46 for capital improvements, and the tax levy to homeowners is less now than it was in 2016, before the 2016 referendum. And we continue to have funds to prepay debt that saves us money and interest payments. All of these things are a testament to the board, to the administrative team, and the community that we serve, and us not having any major issues that we hear about with other school districts regarding the pandemic, and how we've been able to navigate and pivot to meet the needs of our students and our residents and our community. We would like to thank you all for allowing us to represent you, and know that we are and will continue to do what's in the best interest of children and the community that we serve. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Vito. And now we move to the State of the District Report. I'd like to first start with a myriad of accomplishments at the district level. First, I'd just like to share with the community. Oftentimes we remind our community, last year this time we were in the virtual space, where we started our school year off with three weeks of virtual learning for our students, because we wanted to continue to give our staff members an opportunity to continue to hone their skills as it related to teaching virtually, in person, well, really a hybrid experience for our students and staff, for our students last year. One of the points of pride for us is successfully navigating the COVID-19 experience. We have a new name for COVID-19. We are now calling it the experience in our district. And so as we continue to contact trace, isolate, quarantine, encourage individuals to get the vaccination and test often and frequently, we do realize we're still in that space. There were lots of lessons learned last year from that. And we have additional tools in our tool belt as we continue to navigate the experience here in the school district of Brown Deer. Last year, we had monthly reentry meetings with the community. And so parents who wanted to avail themselves to those monthly meetings with the district cabinet, we made ourselves available to answer any questions parents may have had about the experience last year. And my belief is that went over really well, and just left parents with a lot of questions that they had as we continue to move forward, and also helped us as we continue to plan for the upcoming school year, with the thought process being that we would all be back in person and that the experience would be no longer. There were lots of lessons learned from that. As far as the district is concerned, we also served over 300,000 nutritious meals to families. And that was a asset to our community for families who were experiencing food scarcity. And so that went over very well. That was a success. In our technology department, we provided equitable technology for every student, including one-to-one Chromebooks and hotspots for our families if needed, so that all of our students could successfully engage in the virtual experience. We partnered with All Hands Boatworks for our learning experience in the CTE area. Our Administrative Services Center is fully staffed, or was fully staffed last year. We were also pleased to hire a parent engagement liaison, and also the board approved a community specialist for a communications specialist for us as well. As we know, communication to all stakeholders are a vital part of how we do our work. We also engaged in Live at 5 town hall meetings. These meetings took place once a month on a Sunday. For our staff members, there were occasions where board members would pop in and engage in conversations around equity. The Education Foundation donated money to us in order to provide professional learning opportunity for our staff as we kicked off this new school year. And then in the spirit of equity, we continue to engage in discussions around bias training, equity training, and microaggressions with Dr. Marquita Newell, who was with us monthly on last year. So those, and we could name many, many, many more, but this speaks to a little bit of what we engaged in last year as far as the district is concerned and our points of pride. The next slide. I just wanted to remind our community of where we were last year when we were thinking about how to bring our students back to school in the midst of the experience. And I want to say a heartfelt thank you to the board for engaging in these discussions with us and really trying to work through hashing out, if you will, what that should look like as we came back to school last year. Also, a reminder, by the time we got to June of last year, we still were not at 100% capacity in our school district because we still had a myriad of parents who wanted to continue to have their students in the virtual option. So I say that to say, this is our first full year of 100% of our students being back to in-person learning. So there are lots of lessons learned around how we entered last year as opposed to how we entered this year, which are very different. And then in addition to the board, I also want to say thank you to the district cabinet, building administrators, and also our teachers who had to pivot daily to engage in the best experience, a high quality teaching and learning experience for our students. So we worked through all of the phases last year. We actually had a phase 5 where everyone would have come back to 100% in-person learning. And what we agreed to do is we remained in phase 4 because what we learned is every time we entered into a new phase, it meant a significant amount of planning for administrators and teachers. And it became overwhelming at some point. And so we stayed in phase 4. We remained in phase 4 as we transitioned out into to the end of the school year. Next slide, please. Brown Deer Elementary School, a few points of pride here. Phonics and Lucy Calkins curricula, professional development for all teachers to enhance reading for all of our students. Staff collaboration, consistent planning and implementation of lessons. Implementation of professional learning communities. The Brown Deer Elementary School was recognized by the Wisconsin RTI Center in the content area of behavior at the bronze level for reducing suspensions at the elementary school and actually keeping students in the classrooms for learning to take place on a consistent basis. Implementation as a result, one of the results, what served as the impetus for that at the elementary school was implementation of restorative practices, So moving away from this notion of punitive practices and more restorative, so that we can train our scholars and help them be able to transfer those practices once they leave our elementary school, transition into the middle school, and then on to high school and beyond. And finally, at the elementary school, even in the midst of the experience, we were able to, with the help of Mrs. Arnett, our district assessment coordinator, we were able to test 96% of our students at the elementary school with the Wisconsin Forward. Next slide, please. Brown Deer Middle School, Points of Pride. Tech Week we had, students were meeting the first week of school to build relationships and get our students. We also had to onboard our students as it related to the virtual learning experience, keeping in mind that no one had ever engaged in that experience before. And so as we continued from March 13th, 2020, when virtual learning began, we knew that there were some pieces that we needed to enhance along the way as we transitioned back into the school year last year. Cohorting of students within each grade level to create a team approach for student learning. We modified our NEST groups for more heterogeneous groupings. Here again, you see the ELA curriculum included Lucy Calkins and units of study at the middle school. They also implemented a platform called Actively Learned, which was part of the hybrid experience where students were continued to be engaged in standards-based learning. In this case, it was through technology integration. Grade and departmental meetings were held every Wednesday with a focus on student achievement. And then we are also engaging in a dialectical behavior therapy, which is training students for self-regulation. Sixth grade teachers and our SPED staff were trained with that particular strategy. Next slide, please. At the high school, we celebrated our third annual industry signing. Graduation took place in person with parents in attendance. It went over really, really well. It was great to have our parents back in our spaces along with our students. Class of 2021 received over $1.6 million in scholarships, including 4 students who earned a full ride to college. You see here at the high school, standards-based technology, again, integrated learning, much like the middle school with the Actively Learn platform. They also engaged in professional learning communities, and we instituted a flexible schedule to accommodate the needs of students who were in person, as well as our virtual students who had instructional needs. And then our virtual industry advisory breakfast was held in December of last year, and we had over 33 organizations who were a part of that experience. Next slide, please. Summer school. So we did have summer school last year, and I want to give a great big shout out to our summer school principal, Katie Huzanis at the elementary school, and Ms. Erica Probst at the middle and high school. We had 144 students at the elementary school in attendance and 65 at the middle school. Our middle school focus had a lot of enrichment activities, and I must share with the community to watch the level of engagement that came alive with our students with these experiences was absolutely amazing. It was just fabulous. So if you get a chance to visit the football field, you will see a new ticket booth that was built by our students and staff over on the football field. Creation of bridges through STEAM projects, science, technology, engineering, arts, and math, science through cooking. We did some coding with our students in the LRC, and then also team building games. With that, there was we had a focus on literacy, math, and then also enrichment courses where we engaged students in some of the activities where they were passionate about learning different activities. So that was summer school. Next slide, please. And then with athletics, as we had to pivot often and frequently last year regarding athletics as it related to the experience, we still did our very best to keep everyone safe and healthy, yet continued to forge ahead when we knew we could in a safe and healthy way, because we know that these experiences are these offerings are what helps us ensure that we are educating the whole child. And so as we, again, navigated this experience and had to pivot often and frequently, you can see here the numbers as it relates to the number of students who participated in athletics, our middle school offerings, our high school offerings, other activities, and music, and other participants. And so I want to thank Mr. McGregory, our K-12 Athletics and Activities Director. I've never been an athletic director, as we all know, but to watch what he experienced last year in terms of our fall sports moving to spring and pulling that off last year was quite the feat. But I would like to say that with him and his team, we were able to get through. And so thank you, Mr. McGregory, for an outstanding job with athletics and activities last year. We also have Ms. Nora here, who's a qualifier for the forensics, a state qualifier. We were regional basketball champions. We have our Fancy Falcons in the Fine Arts Challenge at the high school. And then we see our DECA students who these are all individuals who are recognized in our district showcase last year. And so we see Mr. Ogunbowale, Mr. Ahmed, and Mr. Truong, who were DECA finalists for us last year. So despite the experience, I will say kudos to our students who found the resilience and the fortitude to continue to push through despite the hand that they were being dealt. Or I should say, despite the hand that we were being dealt. And so with that, you see our slide here, and we are all wearing t-shirts that look like this year. And so as a result of the school district of Brown Deer being united, we were able to get through that experience last year. So thank you everyone for your unrelenting support. We are still in the midst of this experience, but yet we have the best team on site to get our students through this experience, and our staff and administrators have been amazing. So keep in mind that this is the first time since March 13th, 2020, we are at 100% capacity for in-person learning. And so we know that our students are coming with some additional challenges that we had not seen before COVID, but we are putting strategies in place to ensure that they have the best experience ever here in the school district of Brown Deer. So thank you everyone for your support. And I will turn it over to Mr. Klimek.
Thank you, Dr. Kelsey Brown. Good evening, everyone. I'm just confirming, am I going to share my screen or will we share here?
Yes.
You're in.
You're up.
Okay, great. All right, well, good evening, everyone. Thank you for attending. Again, my name is Kevin Klimek. I am the new Director of Business Services here in the District of Brown Deer. And we are, this evening, we're going to present the 2021-22 budget hearing as part of this process as we approve a tax levy this evening. You can go on to the next slide. One of the funny things about school finance is that you have to make a lot of decisions without having all of the information in front of you right away. So even this evening, I'm going to present to you information which is about a month old. And I'm going to ask you to approve a very preliminary tax levy, and I'll review a preliminary budget for you, but there will be things that will change over the next month, and we'll talk about that throughout the process. So the budget process begins in spring, where we look at what we think our anticipated revenues or expenses will be. We look at what our experience was last year in both revenues and expenses, and then we do a needs assessment of the things we think we need to invest in for the upcoming school year. The board approved a preliminary budget in June, which had some very few data points at that point. And then in August, they approved what is the budget that I'm presenting to you this evening, which we call the annual meeting budget. There is some detail available, but it's still very preliminary. So tonight, you're going to be approving the tax levy based on information from August. There'll be more information that'll be coming in October. So as of October 15th, we will have our final third Friday enrollment count. We'll know the final numbers for state aid, including our general equalization aid, and we'll have our final open enrollment in and out numbers, including the voucher student count. So when all that data is available, then we can actually make the final determination of what the tax levy and budget will look like, and the board will be approving that on October 26th. So first, of course, in revenue, the first thing we look at is enrollment. And again, as we've talking about through the experience that we've been going through, we wanted to be very careful and very conservative about the number of students that we expected to have in our buildings this year. So You'll see we have been in a little bit of a decline over the last several years. We wanted to remain flat just to be safe from an estimate standpoint. So again, the numbers that you're going to see tonight are based on a flat enrollment. However, if we go to the next slide, our current information as of now, we are still completing the third Friday count, but you will see that we have had a significant increase in student enrollment. So we have a number of students that maybe last year, due to the experience, were going to other schools, were homeschooling, whatever the case may be. A lot of them are back. And so we are looking at a significant jump going up to, as of right now, over 1,670 students. And these, again, are students in our buildings. So that is good news. And that will provide us with additional revenue authority. This chart here just kind of shows you the history of the revenue limit that we've had in the past. Again, the 21-22 projection is lower than we expected from last year because we thought we had declining enrollment. That will be going up a little bit, but you can see how it's kind of tied. We have had an increasing revenue limit as the years have gone on, and you can see that our student count has kind of bounced around during that same time. An important note that the revenue limit with the student FTE includes open enrollment students out. So this is not just kids that are in here, but it's also resident students that open enroll out. So we're still waiting on those numbers for us. And then a reminder that the revenue limit is set by the state, and there are two main portions of it, which is our local tax levy and then the aid that the state of Wisconsin supplies to us. And you can see over time, the portion of the tax levy that is supported by local taxpayers has diminished as we've increased state aid. Some of that has to do with more investment in general aids across the state from the legislature. But the other reality is that the village of Brown Deer, which is for the most part landlocked and doesn't have a lot of development going on, the value of the village just hasn't increased as fast as other parts in the state. So when that happens, other parts in the state lose out on equalization value, and then we end up benefiting from that. So that's one of the other reasons why we have experienced that. So now I'm going to just spend a few minutes on some of the major fund budgets. School district budgeting works in what we call funds, or basically buckets of money that are assigned for specific purposes. So the first one is operations, which we call Fund 10. A couple of highlights, some of the things that actually Dr. Beadle had mentioned in his comments this evening. Last year, we were able to increase our Fund 10 balance by an additional $800,000, which now puts us at 20.6% of Fund 10 expenditures, which is very sound financial state. We also made our first contribution to our Capital Improvement Trust Fund, which is a $250,000. That's basically a savings account we can use for future capital expenses. And also during that same time, we did make some significant investments in our teaching staff. We did, in addition to the normal raises that we provide on an annual basis, we did also slide our entire teacher salary grid so that our starting salaries increased, and we provided stipends to all of our staff for working in the experience. From a budgetary standpoint, from the state, this was the first year, or the state was going through the biennial budget process this year, and so that's when they determined what kind of funding will be available for education, as well as all the other things that the state finances. Through those discussions, no additional money was provided on a per member basis. So that would mean that a district, if they stayed at steady enrollment or decreasing enrollment, they would have less revenue to spend. Whereas the only way that a district would see an increase in revenue would be an increase in students. And we are actually in that category at this point now. They did also include a slight increase in general and special education aids as well. So that is some good news. And then finally, we had a significant amount of federal funding that has been sent by Congress as a result of the pandemic, the COVID-19 funding. As I mentioned in the minutes, we actually had two packages of funding that we used last year. We exhausted those. That was about $450,000 in total. This year, we have access to two different grants coming from the federal government, known as ESSER 2 and ESSER 3. ESSER 2 will be $860,000, and ESSER 3 is $1.9 million. So you can see almost $2.8 million in total that we will be able to spend as a district. Just a reminder, though, that these are one-time funds. They do have to be used by September 2025. So it's not something we want to do to fund continuing operations, because obviously when the money is no longer available, we'd have to absorb those costs. So we'll be careful about how we spend the money. And we do also note that a certain percentage of each of these programs have to be specifically used to address the learning loss that was experienced when schools were shut down and obviously last year with the hybrid and virtual situations. So then looking at, and this is complete in our in this report, you're going to see a number of charts like this for revenue and expenditures for all of our different funds. This is available in the chat if you happen to click on the link that was provided to you, and it was to be available on our website if you want to see it in more detail, because I'm going to go through these relatively quickly. We are looking at budgeting revenues this year at about $24,755,000. That is an increase, and that again is mostly tied at this point, the way the budget was designed, mostly due to the federal funding. This will change a little bit now that we'll have additional revenue limit authority as well due to the increase in students. And then next slide for expenses from Fund 10. This just categorizes all the different functions of how we spend money and showing you the difference between this year and last year. And again, it's important to remember that we severely underspent last year. We didn't have all the students here year round. We obviously had savings in things like transportation and some other areas. So, so the actual expenditures of what we had last year of $23.2 million, we expect that to be much closer to what was budgeted. So while the increase seems significant, it's also just taking into account that we don't expect to see a surplus like we did last year. So we are looking to, at this point, expend about $24.7 million as well. So we have a balanced budget. Next slide. And then the other major category for operations is Fund 27, which is our special education. This is segregated out from the regular education expenses. These are the things that are above and beyond to provide our services for our special education students. We are looking at a budget this year of about $3.8 million. Again, the revenues and expenses in Fund 27 have to match at the end of the year. Again, you do see an increase there, but that is another situation where we underspent last year from where we had budgeted. This budget is almost identical to last year's budget based on the information we had. And now that we have our student count coming in, we can better assess how many special education students we have, and that'll be part of my report in October. Next slide. And then just to kind of go through from an object standpoint or what we're spending the money on, and this includes both funds 10 and 27. So you see between salaries and benefits, we are spending about 75% of our budget on our personnel, which is really what a school district should be doing. The 12.8% of purchase services includes things like transportation. And then just an important note that OE out, the open enrollment out, we spend about 7.5% of our budget paying for resident students who go to other districts. So we'll see if this year, if those numbers shift at all, if we get some more of those students back in our schools themselves. And I just wanted to highlight, again, we mentioned we have a significant amount of ESSER funding available to us. And so this is what we have planned for right now. We are continuing to invest in our technology. So we have some more Chromebooks purchases coming through for remote learning. We have some additional software tools also for remote learning. We are looking to expand our after-school programming to provide opportunities for our teachers to work with students. So we have some staff stipends for those after-school programs. We've expanded our health room and nursing staff to address the number of COVID cases and the contact tracing that is necessary this year. We've expanded our socio-emotional learning team, or SEL team as we call it here. And this is really important because, as Dr. Kelsey Brown mentioned, we have some kids that are coming back to school for the first time in a year and a half. And so just being able to help them with all the needs and all of the concerns that they have going through this time, we want to make sure we have those supports in place for our students. We also added additional full-time building substitutes so that we have staff in place when staff that are familiar with their buildings in place in the event that some of our other staff are unable to be able to be here. And then we did provide for some of our students that had medical needs a virtual option to be 100% virtual this year. And we partnered with the Kiel Area School District, and we'll be using the funds to help support the cost to that program. And then significantly more will be determined over the course of the next several months and years. And I'll just real briefly go through some of these other funds. They're just ones that the DPI asks us to delineate for everyone. This is Fund 21, Special Revenue Trust. This is primarily the fund that donations and now school activity funds run through. So it's hard to budget for that, but generally speaking, whatever revenue we take in through those donations or through what the school activity groups generate goes out as revenue based on the plans of those various groups. So we'll continue to monitor that one. Can move ahead to Fund 39, debt service. And as you noticed, I did not have a slide for Fund 38. And that is because last year we paid off our final payment for our non-referendum debt. So we have $0 requested for that Fund 38 levy. For Fund 39, this is our referendum debt. So this again is continuing all of the referendums that we have passed over the years and that funding. Again, that is about $3.1 million that we'll be asking for this year to help continue that process. And I just wanted to highlight the remaining long-term debt that we do have. You can see some of these. We did a couple years ago prepay things from the 2009 referendum, so that was taken care of. So basically, you'll see the word QZAB from those of you who have been around since 2012, since we had the 2011 referendum. Also, the 2018 referendum are included in there. And then we did some refinancing and some other things. So you can see we're at about $41 million of long-term debt. Some of it will come off in the next couple of years. The remainder of it will be going into 2038 and 2039. And then, as we mentioned before as well, we did add $250,000 to our capital improvement fund. That was our first deposit into that fund. That allows us to expense money on a capital project without affecting our operational budget. So we're excited about that. And this is also a vehicle that future surpluses will probably end up investing more into this fund as time goes on. So we have that money when we have those large investments we have to make in our plants or in the buildings and facilities. And despite what the minutes said, we actually did not quite spend down the 2018 referendum. We actually have almost $28,000 sitting in that fund. We are in the process of spending that down. We have until March to do that. So we'll be making a few final purchases to address other facility items that then won't come out of our operational fund this year. So next year, this fund will be at zero. For Fund 50, which is food service, as mentioned again, we are in this situation where the federal government is providing free breakfasts and lunches for all of our students, regardless of financial need, and that will continue throughout this entire school year. So for most meals are reimbursable. We will be offering in the schools a la carte meals, which there will be charges for some of those if students decide to go outside of the reimbursable meal. But we have seen a significant increase in the amount of fund balance in Fund 50 because we've just been taking in a considerable amount of revenue. We do expect the revenue to slow down a little bit because we will have some things that we're trying to purchase. Unfortunately, we just finished a referendum where we replaced all of our kitchens with brand new equipment, so we don't have a ton of use for a lot of heavy capital to spend at this point, but we are looking at other ways to improve our food service program and provide additional benefits for our families through that. So we're working through that. And then finally, Fund 80 is our community service fund. This is the fund that supports our after-school programs. It also helps when we have facility scheduling or facility rentals, some of the costs of custodial costs to help maintain those facilities. And we also support our community resource officer, part of our community specialist, and our Elite Falcon Partners program, which is where our senior citizens get to work in our schools and interact with our kids. That was a program that basically we didn't spend a lot of money in Fund 80 last year because the schools were virtually shut down for visitors. And so we will continue to look at what that will look like this year. This again was developed in the summer. We have decided as an administrative team that we are not going to be opening up the schools in the first quarter. So that Elite Falcon Partners budget, as an example, would be lower. So we will re-examine what we anticipate expenses will be in Fund 80, and we'll probably likely reduce the levy accordingly for the final presentation in October. So then we'll get to the tax levy, which is obviously the thing that most people are interested in. But again, I will just caution you to say this is preliminary. I do expect it to be potentially better than where we're at, but it is preliminary based on the final numbers that we have. So if we look at what we're projecting, this year we are looking at a tax levy, total tax levy, you can see that right column on the bottom, of $11,831,000. It's about 5.5% lower than last year. And last year we did over levy to provide for some prepayment of debt. And as you look at the chart as to how our levy has gone over the years, you see that small brown line has disappeared. Again, that's Fund 38, so that is no longer part of the levy. And again, these numbers are going to shift a little bit as we get the final adjustments over the next month. But I do see this again as being a very positive year for the taxpayers in Brown Deer. And then just to compare again over time what the tax levy and mill rate has looked like. We are looking at, again, a decrease in the levy. Right now, we're projecting the mill rate, which is, again, if you calculate what your taxes are, it's based on per $1,000 of home value. It's a rough estimate because the village uses a different calculation than we do for this presentation. But we're looking at a significant drop again in the mill rate. Again, it will be adjusted, and I'll be more specific when we get to the October presentation when I have actual numbers to be sure. But you can see that the village has, and again in that right column, the village has reached the $1 billion valuation mark for the first time in its history. Again, it's not growing as fast as in value as other communities are, so that's another reason why we're going to see again a reduction in the tax levy compared to other areas. So the next steps, you have all this data. What do we do next? So the next step will be that we're going to take a look at making adjustments to our final budget. So we're going to start with some revenue adjustments. As we get our final student count, we find out the number of, we may have some open enrollment out exemptions from the previous year, and we'll find out the number of kids in Brown Deer that are taking advantage of the private school voucher program. And that will all affect how much revenue we'll generate through the revenue limit. We'll have some expenditure adjustments. We'll know what the actual number of students that are open enrolling out will be. We are fine tuning our staff salary and benefit budgets right now as we actually complete hiring and we know exactly salaries and benefits for each individual employee. We can fine tune those a little bit. We'll continue to have conversations and fine tune our use of the ESSER dollars. And again, as I mentioned just a moment ago about Fund 80, we'll decide exactly how that will work and we'll be able to adjust those expenses accordingly. So when all those are done, we'll be making some adjustments to our three main tax levies. Fund 10 will be adjusted based on what those final state aid numbers are, including personal property and high poverty aid. I hadn't budgeted for high poverty aid because I didn't know if we would qualify as a high poverty district. I have since found out that we do. So there will be, that's an additional piece where it's additional state aid, it will lower the tax levy. So again, as we put that all in, we'll have a more clear picture. For Fund 39, just as we did last year, we'll at least discuss it at a board level to decide if the tax decrease is significant enough that maybe we want to consider over levying to prepay some debt again, take advantage of that opportunity to keep the levy a little bit more stable and save long-term interest costs. And then again, with Fund 80, we will likely end up decreasing the overall levy based on our expenses and how much of the fund balance there we want to spend down. So we'll go through all this process over the next month. And then again, we'll be presenting a final budget and tax levy to the board on October 26th for approval. So if you are interested in this process, stay tuned and feel free to attend or attend virtually on October 26th to find out exactly where the budget will come down to. A lot of information there. Again, this is available both on in the chat if you want to get the whole document, or if you would like to, it'll be on our website at the district as well. But if anybody has any questions, I would be happy to answer them.
Thank you very much, Kevin. Any questions for him? Okay.
And if you want to advance to the next slide, it will share with you what the tax levy resolution is when we're ready for that. Thank you.
Great. Before that, we are asking if there's any other new business or public comments to be made at this annual meeting. Now is the time you can speak. Okay, I don't see any hands coming up. So next on our agenda is to authorize the tax levy for the 2021-22 school year for all district operations. Do we have a motion?
I will make a motion.
Okay, thank you, Michelle.
I hereby move that a property tax be levied on behalf of the school district of Brown Deer in the amount of $8,668,838 in the general fund 10. I'll second that. Wait, I'm not done. Oh, sorry. $2,962,189.02 in the referendum debt fund 39. $200,000 in the community service fund 80. For a total of $11,831,027.02 for the 2021 to 2022 school year.
Thank you, Michelle Schofield. Do we have a second on that motion? Seconded by Dorothea Macon. All in favor, please raise your hand for the count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. Okay, that's 13 yeses. Any noes? There are no noes. So it passes unanimously 13-0. Resolution B that we need to vote on is approval of salaries for the school board members, which I understand is in the amount of $3,100. Do we have a motion for that?
I can make a motion to approve the salaries for the school board members for $3,100 for the 2021-2022 school year.
Motion accepted from Michelle Schofield. Seconded. Dorothea Macon is seconding that motion. All in favor for the motion, please raise your hand. That is 6, motioning yes. Any noes? The board has abstained from voting, so it passes, did I say 6? 6-0, unanimously. Next on the agenda is the authorizing of the school board to establish the proposed annual meeting date and location for 2022. The administration is suggesting that the annual meeting next year be September 29th, 2022 at 6 p.m. in the Brown Deer Middle School Commons. Can anybody make a motion to approve of that date?
So moved.
Thank you, Michelle Schofield. Seconded by Dorothea Macon. All in favor, please raise your hand. Is that a yes? Sure.
So are we supposed to be on the 4th Thursday, or are we just supposed to be on whatever the date we designate?
Dorinthia, this is Dr. Brown. So it is, I believe it's a date that we designate together. I would like to propose the 29th. So the superintendent's conference is, we're in the I'm at a superintendent's conference right now, believe it or not. So I had to leave Madison to come back for the annual meeting, and I'm driving back up tonight. And that conference takes place the same time every year, and so I'm hoping that we can eliminate that for next year and go with September 29th for the annual meeting to eliminate that.
Okay.
And I think the other thing too is it's also an opposite date of our Tuesday meeting for the board as well too.
Okay.
Okay, all in favor, please raise your hand for the September 29, 2022 date. $13 say yes. Anyone say no? None seen. It votes unanimously. And with that, our last thing on our agenda is to adjourn the meeting. This meeting is adjourned for the 2021-22 annual meeting.
I'll make a motion. I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Motion made by Michelle Schofield, seconded by Dorothea Macon. All in favor, raise your hands. I've got this down pat now. All 13 say yes. It's unanimous vote, 13-0. Any noes? Okay, this meeting is adjourned.
At 7:05 p.m.
At 7:05 p.m. Thank you, everyone. Have a good evening.
Good job, everybody. Good job.
the opposite of our meeting. Actually, our meeting